So hi and welcome everyone to the first session of this week's Research Bites series. We are talking about making research data discoverable today. My name is Michaela Venn and I'm one of the research services librarians here at the university. We do have some other librarians in the various locations. So here in Menzies with me is Libby Seymour, and in Sandy Bay I think we have Heather Mitchell and also Chris Evans available, and in Launceston we have Ian Bollard and Louise Earwaker, so they are also part of the research team. What are we covering today? So first of all, we'll look at what is a data description, then what are the benefits of describing the data for you as researchers, and why should you make your data descriptions openly available? And then we will also look at how you can actually do that. How can you describe your data and where can you make them, these descriptions, openly available? Now I'd like to start with something that you're probably all familiar with, and this is data management plans. So a data management plan is a document that describes how you will collect, organize, manage, store, secure, backup, preserve, and share your data. So at the beginning of a research project, it's useful if you think about how you're going to manage the data, and that could be at the beginning of your PhD or also in a research project, obviously later on in your research career. So for instance, when you apply for a grant, an ARC grant for instance, then it's actually a requirement that you submit a document which outlines how you're going to manage your data. And the library does provide some help with data management plans. So we do have a subject guide on research data management. It has a tab on data management plans specifically with general information about them, and it also has a link to a data management plan template. And this is how the template looks like. So it's a Word document that you can easily edit and customize. So once you have completed it, you can keep it for your records, you can access it for reference, you can customize it, amend it, and share as is required. So why am I mentioning this? I'm mentioning this because part of the data management plan actually addresses access and discovery. So these elements at the bottom here, they do talk about how the data can then be accessed and discovered. So they are also very relevant elements of data descriptions. But it's not only this part, but really a lot of the information in such a data management plan can then also be used for data descriptions. So what I'm trying to say is that this is actually, data descriptions is not really a new concept, but it rather comes in the context of a data management plan. And if you have already thought about how you're going to manage your data, you already have kind of partly done the work that you need for data descriptions as well. Now this is a slide from a presentation from NASA on data descriptions, and I thought it really neatly outlines some questions that you can ask yourself when you want to describe some data. So, there are questions like who collected the data, who to contact for questions, who owns the data, what are the data about, what format are they in. So I included the slide so that you can, at a later stage when you are about to describe your data, you can refer to it if you like to. And where does sharing the data fit into the research cycle? So this is a picture of the research cycle. At the top in blue, the main cycle. So it starts with having an idea, finding partners, writing a proposal, doing the actual research process, and then the publication. And the research process is kind of a life cycle in itself, with simulating, experimenting, observing, managing the data, analyzing the data, and then sharing the data. So this is where this presentation comes in. And sharing the data consists of the researcher describing the data and publishing this data description into an open repository, and this information can then be picked up by national data surveys and by web search engines such as Google. Now, what are the benefits of describing data? Now, openly available data have benefits to various groups of people. So they have benefits to the broader community, to policymakers, to funding bodies, to research organizations, but also for you as researchers. So this is what we are going to concentrate on. So what's in it for you? So first of all, it increases your research impact. So by describing your data and making these descriptions available, you actually publicize your data and you attract citations for your data. We will talk about data citation a bit more in the next slide. It also enhances your discoverability. So making these data descriptions discoverable and then linking these descriptions with your grants and with your different publications that you have, with all your web profiles that you may have and the research identities, this all contributes to making yourself discoverable as a researcher. It also can allow you to find collaborators. So it helps you to find out who else may work on a particular topic, and it actually facilitates international research, inter-institutional research, interdisciplinary research as well. It can also allow you to find what research and related data is already available in a topic and can possibly avoid unnecessary duplication of research. And then the last point is actually quite an important one. So universities, funding bodies and publishers, they not only encourage researchers to make their data discoverable or their data descriptions discoverable, but they actually make it a requirement. And we will talk about this point a bit in more detail as well. So you're all very familiar with referencing sources such as journal articles and conference papers and reports. Citing data is the practice of providing a reference to the actual data or data descriptions. In fact, citing data is increasingly being recognized as one of the key practices leading to the recognition of data as a primary research output. And this is important because when data sets are routinely being cited, they will achieve a greater validity and significance within the scholarly communication cycle. And also, data citations, they can be counted and they can be tracked and help measure impact. So that's very similar to journal article citations. Obviously, in order for data to be citable, they need to be discoverable, and this is where the data descriptions help. And assigning a DOI, so a digital object identifier, to such a data set facilitates this process even more. So you've all seen a DOI for a journal article, and this is now possible to do for data sets and as well. Now about the different requirements that are around data descriptions. So the University of Tasmania has a management of research data policy, and in there is a paragraph on access to data, and it outlines that researchers should not unreasonably withhold university-owned research data from use by other researchers unless they are obviously prevented by ethical, confidential, or privacy matters. And the Australian Code for Responsible Conduct of Research has got a very similar paragraph in it as well. Some funding agreements from the ARC require the researchers to make the research data publicly available within a specified time frame, usually through a deposit in an institutional repository or a discipline-specific public repository. And there is now also some journals, like the PLOS journals or Nature journals. They require that the researchers make the data that did underlie the findings described in a manuscript, that they make them available to the reader. So as you can see, there is already quite a lot of requirements around access to data around, and they're becoming more and more prevalent. And this actually makes this presentation quite topical, and it's definitely a topic that's not going to go away, but rather will impact or is already impacting all researchers. So you may think that you would actually like to describe your data, but you're worried that you have data collected that are very sensitive. Now again, you don't actually have to make the data itself openly available. You can simply describe it and make this description available. And I just thought I'd provide you with this link. So the Australian National Data Service has a guide on publishing and sharing sensitive data, and if you do have sensitive data, this may be a good guide for you to consult. It includes this decision tree that's up on the screen on what to do, the different decisions behind it when you want to share sensitive data. Okay, let's now talk about how you can actually do it and where you can publish these data descriptions. So the library provides a research data discovery service, RDDS for short, and it's provided by us, the research librarians, and also there is a Vivo repository team as well. So Vivo is the name of the platform that we use for the service, and the Vivo repository team are the people that will enter the data, and us research librarians, we can work with you to come up with the data descriptions. Now, the aim of this service is to make data descriptions from UTES researchers openly available and hence make them discoverable. So really, it is an open repository for research data descriptions. And this is how the interface looks like. So it's an interface that you can browse. You can browse it by people, by data collections, fields of research, and you can also search it. So you can search for particular people or data sets. This is an example of a data description that's in Research Data Discovery Service. So it has been provided by Professor Craig Johnson, who is a researcher at IMES. And you can see that the data set has got a title, so Community Assembly in Marine Macrofauna Communities is the title of this particular data set, and it has got several different elements attached to it, so this is what we call metadata. So we can see that who the data collectors were, what the research area was, a short description of the data set, date coverage, and various keywords. And then there is some other tabs as well with other information. But the good news is that you don't have to provide all this information by yourself. There is a lot of information that we can pre-populate for you and work with you together and help you fill in the information. When you do supply data descriptions into the system, then we will create a profile for you. So this is the example again of Professor Craig Johnson, and you can see this, it links to his UTES staff profile and also to his WARP profile. It has all his publications attached, so they're all publications that are in WARP and they will all be drawn into this system. And then there is some other information about his research, teaching, background, contact information, and all his research identities, they're also all in here as well. Then the system has got some nifty features, so we can, for instance, you can analyze the co-author network of Professor Craig Johnson. When you click on that, it analyzes all the publications that are in the system and analyzes who are his co-authors. So there are just a few nifty little graphs that you can produce in that system as well. When you do supply data descriptions, there are a few key elements that are required. So these are a few of them listed here. So that needs to be a title for the data set, which needs to be unique. So it has to be different to the grant title, for instance. Then a short description is required. The creators of the data set, contact person, and also a grant title. But with that, we could help you identify what the grant title is and the grant number. So to contribute at the data collection record, there is an element spreadsheet. So it's an Excel spreadsheet that you can download from the Research Data Discovery Service website. And it has a few different columns, and this is just a short, like a snapshot of the spreadsheet. And you can see that it has little prompts underneath it that help you fill in the data. So for instance, for the dataset abstract, you could, describe what methodology was applied, the structure and order of the data, description of the files. And again, quite a lot of the spreadsheet we can actually pre-populate for you, and then with the rest of it, we can work with you together as well, if you like, to describe some more of the data. And once the spreadsheet is complete, you can email it to the Vivo repository team, and then they will enter the data into the system. So what's actually going to happen with these descriptions? So the researcher, you provide the data descriptions, then they will be published in the Research Data Discovery Service system. These data will be harvested by Research Data Australia, which is the National Data Discovery Service, and the information will also be picked up by Google and other web search engines. So how can you get started? If you would like to have a go, you can download the spreadsheet from the website, fill it in, and submit it to the research.data@lib.utest.edu.au email address, or if you'd like some help, simply make an appointment with your research librarian. You can email us at this email address here, research.librarians, and we can make an appointment with you and go through the spreadsheet. Also for 2016, we plan to hold some faculty-based workshops, and you will hear more about that in early 2016. Now, quite a lot of the registrants I noticed were HDR candidates, so I thought to wrap up the content of the session, I am going to show a short video clip of Jo Randall. So she's a PhD student at IMES, and in just 1 minute she quite neatly outlines why it's never too early to make data descriptions discoverable.
Hi Jo, could you tell us why you put your data descriptions up onto Vivo?
Data descriptions make your research available to the wider research community. As a PhD student, you're often unaware of where you're going to be in a few years' time. So this publicises your data and provides links to co-authors, which is particularly important if you've worked with some highly regarded researchers. Another advantage is allowing full usage of the data that you've collected. Data collection is expensive and time-consuming, and you often collect more than you'll actually need or have time for in the course of a PhD. Data descriptions are a way of advertising your research work and stopping other researchers from duplicating research effort, and opens up potential for collaborations and data citations for you.
Fantastic, thank you.
Okay, so just before we open up for questions, I'd just like to mention the other Research Bites sessions that we have later in the week. So tomorrow, Louise in Launceston will be presenting Manage Your Research Identity, and this will be video conference to all the same locations at the same time like today. And then on Friday, Heather will be presenting from Sandy Bay, EndNote Beyond the Basics, and we'll be looking at 2 advanced features of EndNotes. So looking at term lists and synchronizing and sharing EndNote libraries. So this will be also held at the same time, same locations, except for here at Menzies, it's in room 444. Okay, so if you feel like we can be of any help to you, feel free to email us to this research.librarians email address. If you later have questions about this or about anything else, feel free to email us. And yeah, I'm now going to invite the other locations to turn on their microphones, and if there are any questions, please feel free to ask.